Thank you, gentlemen and guns. Coming.
You know I have a book. If you don't have it by now, I actually kind of hate you a little bit. You know I have tour dates. Go to BertCast.com and you can find all my information. Today's podcast. One of my favorite documentary filmmakers ever, and my doc is coming out soon from Cocaine Cowboys and the U, Billy Corben.
This is Bertcast.
Yeah, it's not a bad setup. Not a bad setup to travel with.
The handy recorder.
Yeah. What do you use?
That sounds like some My First Sony shit.
Well,
a handy recorder.
The documentaries kind of are. I would say. Do you have a sound man?
Yeah, we do. On most shows, sometimes like when we're doing like some verite stuff or
try to talk.
gun.
You're doing perfect. Yeah.
When we do like verite stuff or run and gun, sometimes we'll just plug and play, like do it on our own. But whenever possible, we try to get a professional sound mixer on set on site.
It helps so much, man. Sound really can change the entire energy of a show, and it pulls me out. Like I remember one time looking at a cut of something, and someone was like, "It hasn't been mixed yet." And I was like, I don't know what that means, but it doesn't matter. And I was like, it sucks. And they're like, well, it's just because it hasn't been mixed.
No, I listen, I wanted to make Cocaine Cowboys a silent movie, but I didn't think that would be nearly as informative and entertaining as it was. So sound is pretty important when you're interviewing people. That would be like a silent podcast. That's would be like, fuck it, we don't need it. We'll let the audio slide on this podcast.
Should have been there.
Yeah, but that's the crazy thing too is when you're screening rough cuts for people. Like it's got to be like trying out material. It's got to be like the most stressful thing in the world, like because when we were and you say, listen, it's a rough cut, the sound hasn't been mixed yet. You tell, and it doesn't matter. Invariably, people will watch and go, well, the sound is bad, and like all the shit that you know that you don't need help on, and they're not able to focus on the shit that you do need help on.
Yeah,
and there's just it's difficult, and I hate showing people or screening rough cuts. And we've done that a couple times at like film festivals where they call them works in progress screenings. That is the most stressful experience ever.
So wait, let's. Only because I'm afraid there's someone that is listening and doesn't know who I'm talking to.
I'm certain that there will be.
No, I don't know, man. I think you're more famous than I am.
I don't think that's true.
I think you're.
I'm not on the Travel Channel.
You know what? I can't stop. This is the only question I want to ask you that I can't. That I will back off from only because it's so out of bad taste. I can't stop wondering how much money you have because I go. Do you make a lot of money doing documentaries?
By the way, it's a great question. I'm glad you asked it because there is a common misconception that we are rich and famous and in the movie business. We are not, and we are not.
Really?
We make documentaries. I mean, would you ask a journalist who writes for Rolling Stone, oh my God, are you rich?
But
you wouldn't assume that.
You seem like I'm sitting with Billy Corben. Billy is I'm going to say arguably my and not because you're sitting in the room, but honestly, my favorite, and not only mine, probably Rogan's, probably a number of dudes' favorite documentary filmmaker. No questions asked. You are definitely Tom Segura's favorite documentary filmmaker. You are Joey Diaz's. You are everyone's. Like you made the U. And look, I hate fucking Miami. I
Go
hate
Canes.
But the U is.
I love, by the way, that we're like here in Seminole country.
Yeah.
It's kind of appropriate,
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly.
It's like every time I call, all I hear in my head is, oh, and I'm like, oh.
Hey, did you see the? Oh, fuck! I don't have it anymore. Fuck. I did. Never mind. I'll show you later. Anyway.
And you were there in the '90s, so you were there in like well, actually, it wasn't the heyday of the rivalry because you were whooping the Canes like.
No. We lost my freshman year. We lost to the Canes. And that was the year that Warren Sapp ran out.
That's because you were there for like 11 years.
I was there during the rivalry and then not during the rivalry. I was there during wide right and wide left.
And all of them in between.
I was there when the Canes ran out after they won and dug their hands into the center of the Seminole in the middle of the field and dug a piece of turf out for memory. Like, I talked to Warren Sapp about that. Warren Sapp, who, by the way, was not in your film. And he talked about you. I did an episode of Bert the Conqueror with him, and he talked about me. He was like, "Yeah, they weren't going to pay me," and I was like, I would have done it anyway." But
now there might be a bit of, well, I mean, regret, I think, because now the guys who are in it, I think their profile has been considerably raised.
Yeah.
And you can't pay people for interviews like that. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, especially when you're interviewing that many people. I mean, and the first year, we were covering 4 national championships. So that's a lot of players, a lot of teams, and that was with 3 different head coaches too. We didn't even get to 2001, which is what the sequel is about that we're shooting now.
You're doing the sequel.
We just started shooting it. Yeah, Sports Illustrated broke it, so I can talk about it a little bit.
Damn it, man.
The U2, I guess.
I wish you were a fan of the Seminoles.
By the way, for those of you keeping score at home, a 30 for 30 score: the Gators 0, FSU 0. Miami 2.
Did you go to
so
University
far.
of Miami?
I did. I graduated from the University of Miami.
By the way, and I'll say this: it is a great fucking school. Like, it's a beautiful campus. I liked it. I did a stand up there with Al Jackson. We did a stand up there, and I really enjoyed it. And I didn't expect to like it at all.
The campus is, I mean, it gives you the best of both worlds. You're in the midst of course, this metropolis, but then you also have this kind of, well, it was a peaceful paradise until 2 football players raped a 17-year-old this week on
serious?
campus, Pearson dormitory. Yeah, and they've been, but unlike FSU, they've been arrested and removed from the team. Can I just say? Yeah. All right, action was swift action was taken as due process takes its course. But you really do. It's a lovely little campus in the middle of Coral Gables, and then the second you're outside, you're in the Grove, you're in downtown, you're in Brickell. But honestly, the value of education there when I attended was not good. It was a Kmart quality education at Neiman Marcus prices in those days, back in the late 90s, early zeros when I was. To be honest, I mean, now I think the quality of education, as the quality of football declines, the quality of academics increases. I think that, and you always see that with the rankings of party schools, right? It's like the better the football team is doing, the higher you invariably rank on the party school charts.
Okay, I don't know where to start with you because you've done so much shit I like. So. I will talk.
We should do this all the time. This is so nice. I hope my mom hears this.
Dude, you are, I remember I want to say me and Brad Ernst met you together at Paul and Young Ron.
Yes,
and we lost our shit.
Dude,
we lost our shit.
Dude, first of all, I walked in. I think I came in at 8 o'clock in the morning. You guys had been there for like the long haul.
I think we were drinking.
Drinking would be a conservative description of what was occurring. Because when I came in, there were like beer bottles on. It kind of looks like your hotel room. It looked like, like your hotel room looks now. It looked like that.
Yeah.
But beer bottles everywhere.
Yeah.
Empty beer bottles on the ground, half drank beer bottles on the counter, like top of the radio studio. And I don't even drink beer, but I felt like the peer pressure. I was like, I got to drink a bit. Someone handed me a beer, and I just sat down, and we were like and it just got completely out of hand. I've been on that show quite a bit. It's the most fun I ever had on that show.
Oh, I remember we lost our minds. I had just seen you. I can tell you the seat I was sitting in. By the way, that's got to be fascinating to hear someone. I remember the seat I was sitting in when I saw 30 for 30 was nothing. For those of you listening, I don't. If you don't know what 30 for 30 is, like a lot of people don't, and oddly enough, it's my favorite program. But it was nothing. And the U was the first one. It was a documentary that you did. And I want to say you started for 30 for 30, kind of. But it
was the first one anybody noticed, to be honest. I mean, to be candid.
It was like
the 5th or 6th one.
Oh, really?
But nobody had seen like the previous 5. And there were great ones. Barry Levinson did one. Peter Berg did one. There was some great, but
really?
No. It was because we had that great time slot after the Heisman in December of 2009.
And you went about it like you were making a movie for your friends. Like that fucking opening. That Uncle Luke cut in with that opening of highlights was. I mean, I remember changing my footing position. I was on a seat and I literally sat on my feet like a child. And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm about to watch something awesome." It was fucking great. And then I'm sitting in a fucking hotel room. Cut to like a year later, 2 years later, I'm sitting in a hotel room. And I'm looking for something to watch, and I see Cocaine Cowboys. And I go, oh, I'd be into that. Like, no, in my head. I don't even know what it is. And then I'm like, oh, wait. Oh, shit, that's Billy. And I was like, fuck. And then I watched that. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Then you do the one about all the players losing their money, which was...
Broke.
Which was... I mean, fascinating. It's like subject matters that are right in my wheelhouse. I want to say I saw you do something recently that I was like fucking lit up. What else? Tell everyone.
Dude, I want to quit while I'm ahead. I'm going to drop Mike right now. Are you kidding? This is great. My agent here. My PR man. This is great. Well, we just did the Tanning of America, One Nation Under Hip Hop, which was a 4-hour doc miniseries for VH1's Rock Doc series. They've done this great Rock Doc series for like 12, 13 years, and it's over now. We turned out to be, we didn't know this at the time, but February was like the swan song, I think, for the Rock Docs.
Really?
Yeah, everybody's gone from that division, unfortunately, but we spent a lot of time and effort and trouble. We interviewed, it's this great theory. Here's a theory. Steve Stout, this guy who ran the urban music division of Interscope, he wrote a book called The Tanning of America, and the theory is that the generation of Americans who grew up immersed in hip-hop culture, which is like the predominant American what was American culture from the 80s to the early zeros? It was hip-hop. So whether it was fashion or whatever it was, fashion, music, movies, it was all hip-hop influence. So he said that those of us who grew up in that generation, it tanned our mental complexion and led to the election of the first black president. He says hip-hop culture did more for like civil rights and the relationship between African Americans and white people than anything since like Martin Luther King.
I think it did, and I think it did, and I think it didn't. I think it did in the sense that I do agree with that, and I do sometimes. It's the same way, and I'm sure you feel this too. You're Jewish, right?
Yes. Nobody's perfect.
But like, growing up in Miami or growing up in Florida, don't you feel like you have some connection to Cuban culture?
Certainly, but also with Uncle Luke growing up, with a lot of hip, Dirty South stuff. I mean, the 808 vibe, that whole scene is all Miami-based. And then Atlanta, and then New Orleans. And
I think I have a connection with black culture through the music, but I also think that what I have a connection with necessarily isn't black culture, but what I have a connection with is hip-hop, which is somewhat braggadocious and violent. And, I mean, the hip-hop I listen to isn't necessarily a reflection of black culture.
And of course, your connection to black people via that one year you discovered you were registering classes at FAMU and you had no idea.
Yeah. I used to take chicks to FAMU all the time. I used to work for the Safe Escort, so I had to drive people around campus. And I remember every time I saw black chicks and they were waiting for the car, I was like, "Where you guys going?" And they're like, "Just get on Monroe Street." And I was like, "Oh, fuck." I was like, this is going to be a long drive.
I'm a Tennessee man myself. The waltz, baby, the waltz, the Tennessee waltz.
So, but that's interesting. So that was the most recent thing you did?
And that was the thing. It just premiered. And then we in March, we started production on the U sequel, which I already, I'm sort of prepared. I mean, listen, I made Cocaine Cowboys 2 Hustlin' with the Godmother, so ain't no shame in this game. But
I saw that one as well.
Did you
I saw that one as well, yeah.
That's an interesting diversion from the first, but I know this is not going to be as good as the first one, and it's not going to be. Dan Le Batard calls the U sports porn, which I think is a pretty accurate description of that genre.
I'll take that. That's actually.
This is a little bit of a different ride. I mean, it does go to the 2001 team. That's really it's the same arc as the first movie. You have this down on its luck team in the shitter. In comes this new coach, rebuilds the thing, bigger and better than ever before. Yeah. But that 01 team is not only the greatest college football team of all time, but it might be the greatest NFL team of all time.
Who's on it?
Dude. Well, first of all, there's 17 first-round draft picks. Jeremy Shockey, Ed Reed, Philip Buchanan, Mike Rumpf, DJ Williams, Antrell Roll, Vince Wilfork, Bryant McKinney.
Do you have tickets to the games?
No, I don't have season tickets because that's like a total ripoff. The way they make you make donations, you can't just I want to support the team, I want to get to, so I'll do it piecemeal, and I'll even do it StubHub to kind of support the people who bought the tickets that don't want the tickets. I'll do that. I don't mind that secondhand market.
So it's like I'm such a horrible interview because all I want to do is celebrate you and all the shit you've done.
Well, today's a special day. Today, actually, incredibly, is the 35th anniversary of the Dadeland Mall shooting, which you'll remember from the beginning of Cocaine Cowboys. That was the first public shot in the cocaine war that began really in earnest the Cocaine Cowboys era in Miami. So it's 35 years ago today.
That is the single event that scarred Miami, I would say, for everyone in Florida. I mean, anyone from Ocala to Jacksonville to Tampa said, I won't be going to Florida. I won't be going to Miami because of that.
It did. Yeah. July 11th, 1979, right about noontime. And ordinarily, we celebrate it with fireworks and parades and things, obviously, this anniversary.
Just toss them into a mall.
I don't know if you know this. Twice a year, every July 4th and every New Year's, the mayor of Miami has a press conference, and they do a campaign, an ad campaign with Pitbull, Dale, local, hip hop royalty, from Miami, and it's a campaign. It's one bullet ruins the party. It's a print campaign. You see it at like Busta. It is a campaign to inform Miamians of basic physics. That what goes up must come down, and please do not celebrate these holidays by firing your guns in the air. They have to do this as a campaign, as a PSA.
They do that in Chicago too. People shoot guns in the air, and then people die because the bullet comes down.
Some child is asleep in their bed in the middle of the night on New Year's Eve.
Insane.
Yeah. This is Bienvenido a Miami.
What did you study at University of Miami? Did you know you wanted to do docs?
Well, I was in film because I got a scholarship. I was a good high school student. So to the credit of the state of Florida, in those days anyway, I don't know about today, they offered a lot of incentives if you wanted to stay in the state. So I got a lot of money to go to UM, and I triple majored in poli-sci, film writing, screenwriting, and then theater, which I didn't spend a lot of time doing. I was focusing more on poli-sci and film. Screenwriting is awesome because you learn the rules of storytelling. We named our company Raconteur, which is the phonetic spelling, Rakonteur, based on a French word, Raconteur, which means one who tells stories with skill. And we just left it at Raconteur, and that wasn't like Raconteur Productions or films or documentary, because we didn't know, because it was right on the cusp of like the early zeros, so we didn't know where technology was going to take us.
You say we, who else?
My producing partners and I, guys I've known literally, we've known each other so long, our parents used to bathe us together.
Really?
We were sophomores in high school. It was weird. so one of the guys, Dave Sipkin, I've known him since nursery school, without exaggeration. His wife has a picture of us together at her 7th birthday party. So that's how long I've known Dave. And then Alfred, I met in TV production class in middle school.
Really?
And our teacher in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, Miss Spicer, Sheila Spicer, she handed us a key. That was one of my earliest connections to black culture. Was Miss Spicer invited us to her church in Overtown, Liberty City, actually one of the black neighborhoods in Miami.
Liberty City was famous for having a big riot in the late 80s, right?
Yeah, well, actually, they were famous for 3 riots in the 1980s. Yeah, and we kind of touch upon that. Well, in both Cocaine Cowboys and the U, because when you think of inner city riots, you think L.A., you think Watts, you think Detroit. But Miami was really ground zero in the 80s for race riots. In fact, the last one was in January of 89 during the Super Bowl at Joe Robbie Stadium. Remember the 49ers game? So the world's press was here in Miami, and Miami was just burned. January of 89. Miami was just on fire.
I remember being in buses going to Joe Robbie Stadium. Or no. I forget. I'm trying to remember.
The Orange Bowl.
Going to the Orange Bowl and being in buses and everyone being terrified driving through Miami. Like they're gonna roll this bus over. I know what they do. But it's so interesting. So then you guys, was your first project the U?
No, we started this company. Actually, our first company when we were sophomores in high school, believe it or not. We were too young. We weren't 18, so we had to put our dads as the officers on the subchapter S corporation. We incorporated our first company and everything, and we ran it, but we weren't old enough to legally run it. So our dads became the president and treasurer and vice president and secretary. But Alfred and I started that company, and Dave came in, and we just worked our asses off on shorts when we were in school. And then when we were in college, the film program is kind of FSU, by the way. I say this unequivocally, might be the best film school in the country.
I've heard that. I heard that about the theater program as well.
It's the film program is unbelievable. It's like a film conservatory. The equipment, the curriculum, the staff is just really second to none. They don't advertise it as much because it's a state school, so they can accept only a limited number of even in-state and out-of-state people, but they don't want to be as famous as NYU or USC or AFM, so they kind of keep it on the down. But if you are in the know and you're looking for a film school, FSU is virtually second to none. I say that without hesitation, being a cane. But UM did not have a good film program, especially in those days when I was in school. And so we wanted to take a leave of absence and do our own project because we were still, had our company together in college, and we wanted to try something. And we heard about a story out of the University of Florida, the Delta Chi fraternity house in the spring of '99. They had a big brother, little brother pledge event. And they went out into the Ocala, the national forest out in Ocala, whatever it's called. And they go out there and they do a ritual, with a bonfire, whatever the hell they do. And they go back to the house on Frat Row in Gainesville, and they have 2 strippers come and perform. Then one of the strippers leaves. The other one goes into a private room, runs out half naked the next day to the Theta Chi house, claiming she had been raped, and it was all caught on videotape. and the videotape winds up. I'm not going to give you all the spoilers. The videotape winds up in the public record and becomes a cause celeb in Gainesville.
I think I saw this.
Yeah, and we made a documentary about it called Raw Deal, A Question of Consent, that interviews the woman, interviews one of the 3 fraternity men that were in the room, and incorporates the actual footage. And here's the interesting thing about it. So we hear about it. So I grew up a middle-class Jewish kid in North Miami Beach. So I say this by way of explaining that, like, I grew up with a bunch of guys, like-minded guys, came from similar backgrounds, similar upbringing, socioeconomic status and everything. So, and a lot of your friends, obviously, they go on to FSU, they go on to UF Florida, which has the unique distinction of having 2 notorious serial killers at both of our flagship universities in the state. Danny Rowling?
I remember when the one was going on in Florida.
Ted Bundy was at FSU, of course, and then Danny Rowling was a 9. That's right. That's your era. That's the 90s.
It was right before I went to college, and I remember a lot of people that had just left for college that were like a couple years older than me all came home. I remember everyone came home and no one did that fall semester because they were like, fuck that, they're killing people up there.
Yeah, and Florida was it was always like that. It's a small town, so and everybody's a stranger in the fall. Everybody. So your doors are open and people are walking in and out and waving and introducing themselves. It was a horror movie come to life.
I saw this footage. I want to say I saw your documentary.
Really?
I want to say I saw the sizzle on your website. So
you probably saw the first 20 minutes on the way. Yeah. So we hear from this guy. So I hear from a friend. In the spring of 99, they release the footage. It gets released in the public record. What's happening is there is a backlog of requests at the state attorney's office and the clerk of courts. So they cannot keep up with the demand for this videotape. It's like 3 hours. There was 2 camera angles. They had gotten coverage. It
was all of them fucking this stripper.
Well, it was the whole night. And then leading up, the last hour plus is in the private room in the frat house with these brothers and with the stripper. And so we get the footage. We get a hold of the footage because what was happening is that if you were the first person on your block in Gainesville to get the footage, you had a kegger so that everybody could come and see because everybody was waiting to see it. So they'd have parties to watch, as people called it, the rape tape, whatever they were calling it. And so I hear from a guy who I grew up with, and we're just chatting, how's school, what's up? He's like, oh, did you hear about this Delta Chi situation? I said, yeah, with the stripper and the party, and she claimed she was raped. Oh, yeah. I just saw the footage at a friend's house. Oh, I said, how was it? What happened? He's like, I got to tell you, I'm sick to my stomach. What these guys did to this poor woman.
Really?
He said they hold her down. She's trying to get away. He said I've barely been able to sleep and eat for the last 3 days since I saw it. It is despicable and harrowing, and I don't know how these guys aren't in jail. And a couple days later, another friend, again, similar dude, same neighborhood. We all grew up together. I said, oh, I heard about the Delta Chi footage. Have you seen? He goes, oh, yeah, I just saw it. This lying slut. What a whore. You should see her on the video sucking these guys, doing all. And she cried rape. They should put her in prison for trying to ruin these guys' lives.
Really?
So I'm thinking, holy shit. Here are similar, reasonable, educated guys who watched the same footage and completely disagreed about whether or not they witnessed a rape or a consensual sex act.
God dang.
And so right away I was like, well, that's a fascinating subject for a documentary. And at the same time, this was the digital revolution. It's kind of cool that we're doing this on a podcast because you remember, like, post Blair Witch, like every schmuck with a video camera thought they were a filmmaker. Yeah. And the poor people at Sundance, the entries shot up all of a sudden, quadruple or some ridiculous number, and I'm like, who sits through all this shit, and so I gotta say, my bar mitzvah video was scarier than the Blair Witch Project. For a while I thought the hairdos alone, but I thought for a while everybody's just gonna dig out old videos and try to make an indie film, and it kind of happened. So Alfred said to me, we had been shooting on film, we were old school, we were cutting with with razor blades and Scotch tape,
really?
That's how we went to film school. So with these commie cams, these Russian crank cameras. Yeah. That we would the machine, as we called them in those days, the machine, these Bolex 8, you put a key in and wind them up, Yeah. So now all of a sudden was the era of, it was Avids, Media 100, nonlinear editing, digital filmmaking. So Alfred said, we should do a DV, a digital video project. I'm like, you know what? I don't like, it's cold. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't have the warmth of film. So even if you're not an expert, you still sit down and go, well, that don't feel like Mary Poppins, or that don't feel like Scarface. It doesn't. So I said, but it's kind of synonymous with the coldness of news footage and TV. So what if we did a doc? We'd never done a doc, but we hadn't even taken a doc class. We were fans of the genre, but I said, well, if he wanted to, he was an early adopter. So he always has been. He wanted to just, let's do DV, let's do Final Cut Pro version 1.0, literally. Yeah. He's like, let's try this. And I kind of said, well, the genre to me seems to be, or the technology seems to be best suited to docs. Now you got HD, you got film lenses, you can make it look really sexy, and we do or try to. But those days it was just cold video shit. So it was like, I said, let's do it. He said, let's do digital video. I said, cool, let's do a doc. And then this story, like it was the perfect storm, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
And we decided to do it in January of 2000. And in January of 2001, we became the youngest filmmakers in Sundance history a year later with that movie.
How old were you?
We were 22 when we got to Sundance. So we were like 21 when we
And
made
so
it.
now did you hang out with those guys in the video? Did you incorporate them in the video? The guys that were in the rape?
Oh, yeah. We interviewed the stripper.
Really?
We interviewed one of the 3 guys who was in the room, in the private room. We interviewed another 3 fraternity brothers who were a part of the major, the house event in the common area. We interviewed a representative from the University Police Department, who's, at that time anyway, the number 1 crime that they faced on campus, bicycle theft.
Really?
That was the number 1 crime that the University Police Department investigated.
I feel like my freshman class was the first class where acknowledging that rape happened was brought up. Like before that, I remember going to a social. I remember hearing stories about socials at our fraternity where people were chanting "No means yes." Like just, I mean, like Jesus. It was just like, I mean, there was a real fucking problem with rape in universities, and
still
I'd say,
is.
Oh yeah, completely. I would say, and I was thinking about doing some sort of like pro bono work of going to colleges and talking about rape and talking to boys. Look, if you want to, don't. It's like all the focus about rape is like talk to women. Fuck that. Talk to the people doing it.
Yeah.
Talk to boys.
Show this movie, because this movie opens up a well of discussion like I've never seen. I've had Q&As with this movie. It's the most like fascinating, sometimes depressing, sometimes enlightening experience. I mean, one woman at a Q&A went up to a microphone and said, I've never said this publicly before, but I was a victim of sexual assault on campus several years ago, and told her whole story. And it kind of opens up this whole discussion, which is a pretty taboo subject, which I think is what you were getting at. Nobody really acknowledged it. You know?
Wait. So, and without having a spoiler alert, but like, what was your summation of this?
You know what? Honestly, and I'm not saying this just to be self-promotional, because really very few people have seen this movie because it's so graphic. Because the videotape itself is tantamount to a homemade porn movie, and depending on your personal view, either depicts the rape of this woman or consensual sex. So you really have to watch it for yourself, because it's like, and the movie, one of the greatest compliments we ever got is from the Scotsman, which is like the New York Times in Scotland. And they gave it 4 stars, and they said it is a triumph of objective reporting. Because over the course of the movie, people themselves will change their mind about what they think happened. And you do it over the course of watching the raw video footage. And I wanted to kind of duplicate that experience. It's a pretty confusing, because here's the thing. It's like, it's not this typical Hollywood rape. You know, it's not the accused. It's not a woman kicking and screaming and, on top of a pinball machine or anything.
I saw some of the video.
You would have if you watched we had like the first 20 minutes of the movie on our website.
Yeah, and I want to say I saw some of the video, and I want to say that I can't fucking remember, but I remember thinking there are times where you're like, oh, it's fine, and then you're like, whoa, that's enough of a buzz.
Yeah.
Where I'd pull out. I'd be like, I'm done.
But then you have the well, here's the thing. She was a stripper, so part of her job is to draw a line and say, this is a professional transaction. I set the rules. If I want to break the rules, you can't touch me, I can touch you. And then if she puts her hands on you, it starts to gray over the course of the night with, first of all, drugs and alcohol are involved.
Yeah.
Exhaustion is involved. Moving from the common area to the private room.
Yeah.
So the line blurs and grays until it virtually disappears. And so either Lisa, who is the alleged victim, is trying to reestablish those boundaries by saying yes, but, yes, I will do this, but no, I won't do that.
Yeah.
Does she use the word no? Does that matter? Alfred always says, producing partner, Alfred Spellman, he says, like, you expect video to present some kind of objective reality. You see the surveillance video from 7-Eleven. That's the guy. He robbed the place. Go find him. Boom. Here, you realize that this crime of rape, which might be one of the most oft committed, least reported crimes in the history of man, you realize that this might actually be in the heads of both the victim and the perpetrator. Meaning the breakdown in communication might just be, this sort of unspoken language that they're trying to express to each other, and it gets really very complicated and convoluted, but this movie really opens up the door for really a free flow of ideas and conversation about it. And I wish that the movie was well known. I think it's the most important thing we've ever done. It's our first work, so yeah, like as a first time documentarian, there are mistakes, but I think as far as importance, as far as finding, I say the job of a documentarian, or really any filmmaker, is find a good story and then don't fuck it up, or find a good story and then tell it well. So when you have a good story, you get out of its way. You can adopt a style that hopefully serves a story, but the idea is just tell the story well,
No, so where can people, just only because I know that people are going to go, fuck, I'm going to watch this. Where can people find it? And what happened with the crime?
Okay, our website, it's too difficult to spell raconteur, but if you go to CocaineCowboys.com, which is much easier to remember, it redirects you to our website, and then you just click on the raw deal button, and you could stream it, I think, right there. And any of our movies, if you just click on the button, Tanning of America, One Nation Under Hip Hop, not a lot of people saw on VH1 because it's like 4 hours. So, but you could watch it again streaming for free right on our website, CocaineCowboys.com, which everybody's gonna remember that.
Yeah, everyone knows that one.
But the case, and again, at the risk of sort of spoiling it, the stripper, when the police got a hold of the videotape, she told them about the tape. She goes, I was raped. It's on video. Go to the fraternity house and get it. They got it. They watched the tape, and then they put her in handcuffs and arrested her for filing a false police report. Really? A misdemeanor. Yeah. And that's when the National Organization for Women, the local chapter, the campus chapter, got a hold of it, and they started doing these protests. The video goes public, and then it became, it was no longer just a he said, she said. It was now the videotape as well. And now you have people who usually see at the screenings, it's usually a pretty solid 50-50 split, between people who think she was raped and people who don't. Then it gets tougher when you start to ask questions like, if you were on a jury, would you convict this man and send, facing a possible 20 years in prison, then fewer hands go? It's a really interesting experience, but it's also not the way that you think it would be.
Was she black or white?
She was white. But here's the thing. It's a great question, too, because it's when the Duke lacrosse case came up, a lot of this whole case kind of came up again. Yeah. And they started talking about our movie again, like on the 24-hour news stations and everything. And so, but she was, how do I put this? What they referred to as white trash in the video. That's how they refer to her. And her ex-husband was black. She had some black children. The police detective actually includes in the 60-page police report on her misdemeanor filing a false police report that her children are black. For no reason. She just includes that detail in the police report. And she went to the local community college, Santa Fe Community College in Gainesville. So there's kind of and you realize that it's not so much about race than it is socioeconomic status.
It's always about socioeconomic. I would want to say that the majority of times that you hear white people say racially charged things, I think they're misdirected, and what they really mean to say is not a black person, Cuban person, Mexican person, but what they mean to say is this uneducated, it's I think that they confuse race with socioeconomics, or this poor person, this,
there's that great line from Bulworth from the Warren Beatty movie where he says white people have more in common with black people than rich people. Than they do with rich. I mean, that's the bottom line. Is that it's not the difference of races and religion. All of these things are a distraction to pit us against each other. Yeah. When in actuality, it's not the white man keeping the black man down. It's the rich man keeping everybody down.
You look at there's no. I don't know. I'm not going to get on this conversation about race, but. I have no fucking dog in that fight. What the fuck do I care?
We're white guys. That's the thing. It's like we could not. I mean, it wasn't up to us that we're white guys. You can't blame us for it. But the truth is that I don't know how difficult life is. Yeah. I try to be empathetic and but it disgusts me. I mean, there's just I was just talking to this lawyer who also happens to be a commissioner in the city of Miami Beach, and he's got a case, a black woman who was in a strip club with her brother, and these dudes jumped on stage to attack the brother, and they pushed them off stage. The strip club throws them out into the parking lot. But then when they leave the club later, this woman and her brother and their friend, these guys are still dwelling in the parking lot. And they literally back them up. The woman goes to her car because she's scared. She gets her gun, puts it in her pocket, and they back her up against a wall. She tries to break up this melee. They punches start being thrown. She pulls out a gun and fires and kills a guy. This is what we call in Florida stand your ground. Yeah. This is the law. You may not like it, but this is classic textbook stand your ground. If ever there was a stand your ground case, a lot of people I know have exploited it, misused it. This is a stand your ground case. She's a black woman, though. She's been in jail for 2 months now, waiting trial. But like, it's crazy. But I realized, I was like, you know what? Stand your ground also applies to black people. Not just when white people shoot black people, but you realize that there really are two completely distinct systems of justice in this country.
Completely. I was having drinks with Monique, who's a comedian, during the Trayvon Martin thing, and we were at a bar talking with her. I think her husband or her boyfriend. I think it's her husband and her manager. And she lives in Miami. She was like, "Fuck yeah, I have a gun, and fuck yeah, I like stand your ground." Not to put words in Monique's mouth, but like the majority of people that live in Florida carry firearms. And they are firm believers in stand your ground. And you look at the whole Opie and Anthony thing. Anthony had a firearm on him, and he didn't shoot her. Yeah. The woman that attacked him. Everyone's like, did she really attack him? Yeah. You have any idea what a sociopath you need to be like, I just made this whole fucking thing up?
Yeah. He was set off by something, so something obviously happened. He didn't just start tweeting out of the clear blue sky.
Exactly. So, but yeah, my buddy Cowhead always has a gun on him. Always.
You kind of have to in Florida.
It's amazing. Everyone has a gun on them in Florida.
You kind of have to. And if people really understood that, I think we'd all treat each other a lot nicer. A lot friendlier, too. But that thing about Trayvon, it's like every time I'd have a conversation with somebody about Trayvon, it was very simple. You just had to use the Matthew McConaughey closing argument from A Time to Kill line. It's
Imagine if that kid was white.
Right. It's like, why are we having this conversation? What happened? I didn't take a lot of sides, but I posted a lot of articles about it on my Twitter feed, and I got some flack, got some tweef, some Twitter beef with some folks, and I finally just tweeted at the when the trial was over. And by the way, I've sat on a criminal jury trial in Miami-Dade County. I believe that the jurors, with the evidence that they had, unfortunately, for better or worse, came to the right legal conclusion. Because the only other witness, you understand, was shot and killed by George Zimmerman. So the evidence that they had was consistent, unfortunately, with the verdict that they came to. But I finally just tweeted, I said, listen, it's cool if you unfollow me because of my Trayvon tweets. Yeah. But if George Zimmerman had unfollowed Trayvon, we never would be having this conversation. Yeah. So you want to see where shit started. It's like he got out of the car.
If he had unfollowed,
if he had unfollowed him, we would not even be having this conversation. So, that's the bottom. But everybody, he's a thug. He's this. He's that. Oh, dude. Oh my God. So we have a U fan page for the movie. Yeah. We came up with this U fan page. This kind of goes back to our kind of obsession with technology. We had the first movie page on MySpace. I don't know if you remember MySpace.
It was the
lost city of the social media city of MySpace. But we had one before they had
it's
MySpace.
Thunderdome and Dane Cook's running it.
2 men enter, 1 man leave.
It's got this old Waterworld vibe to it. And Dane is still
the mariner.
He's on a jet ski going.
Oh no, the smoker. He's Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I got a movie gave me an anxiety attack. But keep going.
No. So. Well, so even before they did the channels where there was MySpace comedy, MySpace music, MySpace movies. Even before that, we threw Cocaine Cowboys up on MySpace so there wasn't such thing as a MySpace movie page, but we made a page for the movie. And the next thing you know, we got a call from Tribeca Film Festival to help us. For us to help them with their MySpace page. Then it became a whole thing because all of a sudden overnightish we got 30,000 followers on this, or friends or whatever, on whatever they called them. I don't know the terminology. Is tall a small? I don't know all the corporate technology. Friends, followers, minions. I don't know. I don't speak corporate speak, but they. So we were on, and then we were on Facebook. So we did a U Facebook page. The movie wasn't premiering until December of 2009 on ESPN, on ESPN right after the Heisman ceremony, and then. So, but we were in the middle of it in August. So we put the page up in August. Why August? Back to school, baby. Everybody's re-engaging in college football. So we throw this UFan page up. The next thing you know, boom, 45,000 followers. Now it's 180,000 followers. It's one of the largest and most interactive Canes fan sites. And it was all for the movie, to promote the movie. And we would do news you can use, like contemporary Canes news, but every once in a while, sprinkle in some great classic Kane stuff, promote the movie, of course. Yeah. And we've maintained it. We always joked in case we make a sequel, but hell, now we're making a sequel. But the point of the story was that one day when the the Trayvon verdict came. Every once in a while, I like to troll my own page. Like the other day when I posted that picture of LeBron's moving the moving trucks moving his cars, like I don't really give a shit. The man's making a life decision. Leave him alone. You know, he's at his basketball camp in Vegas. He's meeting with teams. He's going to do whatever's best for him and his family. Why do we all have to be hanging on this guy? Meanwhile, I'm posting like important stories about the world, but the biggest post of the day was some, just rampant LeBron speculation. Is this what people have to sit around and work? Is your life so boring and miserable that this guy taking a dump is like the focal point of your day? Regardless, I digress because now he's leaving. Now he's going to Cleveland.
Is he?
Yeah, while you were sleeping, dude.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, breaking news. He's going to Cleveland. It's over. The decision has been. I said a few weeks ago, I was like, everybody relax. What's all this speculation? It's going to be at least a few weeks plus 1 hour on ESPN before we hear his decision. But he didn't. Shit. He just announced it. He had a very nice, heartfelt letter about, and everybody knew his story arc. Like I said, find a good story, and tell it well. His story arc had to be going home to Cleveland. Yeah. But he's 29, so it was really a question of when. I think, but I honestly didn't think it was going to be this quickly. I thought he was going to stick around another couple of years.
God, that's so fucking
but LeBron's
crazy.
going back to Cleveland. But you know what? Then you have to live in Cleveland. So
well, I think he grew up in Ohio, right?
yeah.
I gotta be honest with you. Ohio's my favorite state in the entire union.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah. Have you ever been?
¿Por qué? ¿Por qué Ohio?
It's fucking amazing. There's trees everywhere. It feels like you're always like. I don't know. I did it with the crew, my trip flip crew. We all kind of argued what was our favorite state, and we argued pro and con. And we're like, well, we all love Montana, but diversity isn't necessarily running rampant in Montana. And if you really want a fun state, you need diversity.
I agree.
You need gays. You need blacks. You need Latinos.
Yeah. I get freaked out when there's too many white people. I can't get like arroz con pollo or like café con leche. I start to freak out. I'm like, this is cool, but I gotta go.
The food is one note.
Yeah, I can't do the homogenized towns.
Yeah, and so we went through all pro and con, everything. We're like, it's Ohio. Ohio's our favorite state. We all talked about it, and then we went through 12 states that we were argued pro and con. And we all ended on Ohio. It's my favorite state.
Any state that would vote Bernie Kosar for president is okay in my book, dude. He would win Ohio for sure.
God, man, what's he doing now? He looked rough in that.
Well, he's time and alcohol have taken their toll. He's been pretty candid about his issues. I mean, he called a lot of audibles, so he didn't wear a mouth guard, and he played football for. He was in 13 seasons in the NFL and then 3 years in college, and so he took a lot of blows. So his concussion situation, his brain situation has been tenuous. I think he's had some surgery. He's been very candid about his struggles with alcohol and drug abuse, and because a lot of these guys you don't have the team doctor anymore, you start self-medicating. So that's what happens to a lot of these guys. And Bernie's been, he's caught some flack. He's been in some trouble. He had a DUI arrest pretty recently. But I think those are like wake-up calls for a guy like Bernie because he's an incredibly smart, responsible guy. Yeah, and he's a pretty smart. And this here's a guy who made, despite having, the average career in the NFL is 3.3 years. He was in it for like 12, 13 seasons. So he made a lot of money, but he's famous for having made even more money after he retired from the NFL in like business and real estate. He was a very smart. He graduated UM, I think, in like 3 years, but he had an incredible experience when his dad, who was steel mill town kind of guy who lost his job when the factory closed down, a classic kind of Ohio story, Cleveland suburb kind of tale, and his dad essentially helped deliver him to the Browns after he graduated, University of Miami.
What do you mean?
I mean, he helped facilitate that deal, meaning that, Bernie was going back to Cleveland, so to speak. Yeah. It's like LeBron playing for the Cavaliers. So it's like, the prodigal son returns. And so his dad negotiated, unbeknownst to Bernie, a secret $1 million side deal with the team that got paid out to him over 3 years or so, whatever Bernie's contract was. Yeah. So his dad was being paid by the team.
God dang.
Yeah, so that's what Broke is really about. It's about who can you trust and how these athletes go broke, because that's the funny thing about, not the funny thing, but the craziest thing that I learned about it is everybody always says, how the fuck do these guys blow through all this money? Turns out it's very easy to do.
Oh yeah, I've torn through a lot of money. I remember one point I had and that's why I like that doc, is that it's really easy. I mean, I'm doing it this weekend, but But I remember my first TV show I was making, which I I guess I can. I don't really care. But all the money's gone.
Yeah.
But I had a deal. I had a deal with Will Smith that was 6 figures, and I had a deal at CBS that was 6 figures, and I got both those monies at the exact same time, randomly. That's how that worked back then. Is you'd sign a deal, but you wouldn't get the money for like a year. Right. So I got both those monies at the same time, and then I was making
good agent, dude.
I was making $5,000 a week, which God, I thought it was so much money. Now I look back, I'm like, how did I get by? But like I was making $5,000 a week. I mean, it's so silly to say, but I was making $5,000 a week on the X show, and then I was just banking money.
But TV money isn't getting better. Budgets are getting tighter. There's so many networks, and
it's getting better. It has remained the same for it's remained the same for basic cable. I think basic cable's kind of plateaued over the years, and they never paid money. Then they paid money, and now they're on this like level where you're like they pay some money, but they're not. You're not making $1 million. Right. Some people are making $1 million, like
but
Bourdain.
Not many. Yeah.
Bourdain is probably. I would say I'm not going to say anyone on my network that is, but I'm sure there are people on my network that are. But sitcom money fell apart.
Oh yeah,
sitcom money. When my first deal was like $35,000 an episode was my deal. I did a deal like probably 6 years ago where I was going to test, and you got to make the deal before you go into test. And they offered me $5,000 an episode. I was like, $5,000 an episode? Like, wait, you guys know that, like, I remember being like, I would never do that. And this was before Travel Channel. And I was like, I wouldn't have done that for Travel Channel.
I remember I was a kid. I was a child actor, so to speak. And because in Miami in those days, my brother was the athlete in the family. My brother was this little Jewish kid. Everything he did, he picked up a hockey stick. He was ridiculous. He picked up a basketball. He was ridiculous. He picked up a football, baseball, just an incredible athlete. I had my first at-bat at the North Miami Beach Optimist, T-ball. I struck out. It's T-ball. You know what T-ball is? The ball's on a fucking stick right in front of you. Yeah, swung at it 3 times. One time I caught T, but that's a strike. Yeah. Okay, I realized my first at-bat strikeout in T-ball, sports was not for me. So I had friends who were actually doing TV commercials, because in Miami it was like hot back then. Talking about like Miami Vice and catalog modeling and all this shit.
That
here.
Burt Reynolds show.
And there's all kinds of
remember that Burt Reynolds? He did a show down here.
Which show did he do?
Or maybe it was in Seminole. He did it
I'm sure he did a show because he was here.
Yeah. I forget. It was with him and a young black kid, and they solved mysteries together.
Wait, Cop and a Half, the movie, that was a feature.
Wait, they did a series.
Based on that? You're kidding.
I want to say they did a series.
Cop and a Half was a movie with Burt Reynolds and a little black kid as solving crimes or whatever the hell they did. That's hilarious.
So
I would love if they. Well, I was working. It was the '90s in LA that I started working, because I did a commercial for every fakakta thing you can imagine here.
That's so.
And like you name a product or a category, cereal, fast food, sandwich meats, toys, and I did a commercial for it in Miami. And then I started to go. We would. The manager would fax sides. You'd get sides faxed. And then you'd put yourself on videotape, like my mom would put me on the video, and we'd FedEx the tape, and then they would fly us out Pan Am business class. They were throwing away so much. I always thought this business model is untenable. Like, all the money they threw around.
I flew out first class on like United when I was 25, 26. To L.A., and I remember going like, they don't need to fly me first class.
Did you even have the gig yet? Like, I didn't even have the gig. No, I was going to test or meet producers or something.
I was going out to meet with networks.
So it was the same shit for me. And I wound up working a lot. I played Judd Hirsch's kid on Dear John, a show on NBC. I don't remember that show.
I do.
About the group of divorcees who were like,
really?
So I was his son. Ben Savage was his son, and then he got his own show, and then I took over. I was an alcoholic son of Douglas Brackman Jr. on LA Law. Or
really?
La, as we used to call it. It was fun. Like my mom used to joke. She's like, it's like, and all the shows I did were NBC. She's like, it's the network of Billy Corben. I was a little kid. I was on Night Court. I was a patient on Empty Nest. Remember?
Yeah.
Empty Nest. And it was already like towards the end of that show, so it was a big deal. I was like, oh my god, I get to be a patient on Empty Nest because I watched that show.
Shit.
Remember all those sitcoms that took place in Miami? Golden Girls, Empty Nest, Nurses. They had like that lineup of shows. So like that was really cool. And I worked a lot as a kid out in LA. My last 2 years, I tested for a pilot, which I think was at CBS, but then moved networks, called Third Rock from the Sun. I was tested with John Lithgow, and didn't get the part. I think the more talented actor certainly got Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Yeah, certainly got that part. But so the last 2 years I'm in LA. Because at some point I was like, it's like playing t-ball or doing ballet. You're like, you grow out of it. It's you're like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't look good in a tutu. Like, it's over. That was my after school activity. So every year my parents would say to me, and I was doing pretty well. We were reinvesting the money, so to speak, but I was doing pretty well. And it was that stupid money, that era of stupid money, and in Hollywood. And so my parents would say to me, when you're done, let us know. Because we would like split up the family for pilot season. It was getting silly, Yeah. So my brother and my dad were in Miami, and my mom and I were out there. So they'd be like, "Whenever you're ready, Bill, let us know, and we'll stop doing this. You know, we don't have to do this. We're not forcing you to do it." And I would go to I went to a place called Valley Professional School. It was a school for working actor kids, and I would get my books and my assignments, and then if I needed help, I'd go into some strip mall office, some strip mall classroom that they had, and there was like Jonathan Brandis and all these like kids who were on hiatus between it was a really weird subculture in those days. And so the second to last year I did a show. This was in the days when the money started to fall off slightly, because then when you weren't doing a pilot, they'd call it a presentation. Yeah, which was really just a pilot, only you had 5 days instead of 2 weeks. I remember that. Now it's called a sizzle. Now it's like, give us 2 minutes. Yep. Give us your best 2 minutes.
Who wants to sit through 5 minutes?
Who's got that kind of time? So we would do but we had to do the whole show in this presentation. But instead of the normal 2 weeks for a sitcom pilot, we had 5. We had the typical sitcom like schedule, the 1 week. So, and the show was called Odd Man Out, and it was written by was it Ed Dector and John Strauss, I think were their names. Yeah. And Amy Aquino, this other kid was in it. Allison Porter, who played Curly Sue, who I knew we did Parenthood together in Orlando. That was one of the first movies they shot in Universal, Florida. Yeah, was Parenthood. They did like Nickelodeon shit, Psycho 4, and Parenthood. I cursed in Parenthood. My mom couldn't believe that Opie was making me curse. Because because Ron Howard was directing that movie, and that was incredible. Because I was like 9 years old, and we went up to Orlando, and it was the creepiest shit. Universal was just a few sound stages where they did Nickelodeon stuff, and then mountains of dirt. And in the middle of the dirt, lit up by spotlights at night, was the Psycho house. Yeah. In the middle of you would just look out and you'd be like, that's some scary shit right there. So we did Parenthood up there, and with it was like Steve Martin and Mary Steenburgen and
Keanu Reeves
and Lee Phoenix. In those days,
am I thinking of?
No, you're right. Keanu Reeves. Yeah. With Martha Plimpton. He was Martha Plimpton.
Yeah, Lee
Phoenix, who's now Joaquin Phoenix. Same guy. There you go. It's the shofar. Is it the holiday high holies already?
Jesus,
so I'm the kid in the birthday party who goes, "That's the schmuck who brought the horse, and let's go watch the horse shit." Yeah. And I have another line in that scene where Steve Martin is doing his Cowboy Dan routine. Yeah. And I'm like, "Oh, you're not Cowboy Dan, you're Kevin's dad." And when Steve Martin did the talk show circuit, that was the clip they used on Johnny, on Arsenio. Really? I mean, wherever he went, they showed that clip, and my mom would flip out. She'd go, "Oh my God, that's Billy screaming! That's Billy's voice!" It was awesome, and I think I got like a residual check for that too. But the crazy, I get residual checks for LA Law. That the checks are for less money than the stamp, because it's like, when they go previously on LA Law, and if they show a clip of you during that, you get like 24 cents or 25 cents in Indonesia. Yeah, it's just like ridiculous. But I digress. So, also in that show was Hilary Swank. She was playing the sister of the lead guy. I was always the Urkel. I was always the next door neighbor, the best friend, the younger brother. That was always I was like, or Eddie Haskell. That was always my part. So I played the best friend, and who had like the hots for all of his sisters. It was like an odd man out. It was him, his single mom, and his 3 sisters, of which Hilary Swank was one of them. So we do the show. It doesn't get picked up. Interestingly, many years later, Ed Dector and John Strauss would co-author the script to There's Something About Mary. Really? And this script would get revived, and it went to series for 13 episodes with Marky Post, Odd Man Out. All of a sudden, I'm like, that's the show I did like 5 years ago. Yeah. Now it was picked up for a season because these guys blew up. You know what happens? You blow up and you're really hot. And so, and I think Ed and John wrote that script, and then the Farley brothers came in, because it's credited like the Farley brothers and then Ed and John. So I feel like they had like a cute romantic comedy script that the Farley brothers came and turned into, Come in Your Hair. You know, like that was boom. Let
me just put in a sunburnt old lady.
Yeah. And this is good. And it was huge. It was a Miami movie, no less. Yeah. They shot it down here, and so, long story even longer, that was when I decided to retire at like age 15 from acting. And we come to Miami, and my manager would still hit me up and be like, put yourself on tape. So we did it, and they flew me out. And it was a Fox pilot called Reality Check. So this is like 94, 95, right around there. And I'm already going to high school in Miami like a normal human being. It was an arts high school, so it was kind of like Fame. We danced on cabs and things. It was ridiculous. But it was still like I was now home, and like it was trying to have like a normal life, and it was cool. And so they fly me out, and like I'm there for days. Like, what's up? Like, I'm playing the brother of the lead. Like, I'm not an important cast member. So they finally call me in for one last audition, because I said I'm going home. Like this, if I get it, I get it. If I don't, that's cool too. Because after a while, I kept thinking to myself, what is the goal here? We come on every pilot season. I do some usually terrible show, and then I can do a couple guest stints and then like a movie. But you can only do one pilot because they have power over you. They have first right of refusal. So if they pick up the show and they want you, you can't be obligated to any other show. So and I'm like, well, what was the goal here? The goal would be like, one of these shows would get picked up. I'd be rich, but I'd be miserable probably. You know what I mean? On one of these terrible shows. So Reality Check. So I do this audition, and I go out. My mom is there. I'm like, let's go home. And they come out, they go, you got the part. I've never seen that happen before. Like the casting director comes running back out and is like, okay, you got the part.
You got it.
And we need you to come down the hall because the entire cast is in a conference room waiting to do the first read through. And I'm like, they're waiting for me. I was like, I'm the least important character in this script. Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, but everybody else is there. So I walk down the hall, I walk in the room, Hilary Swank is there. I'm like, Hilary, what are you doing here? She's like, Billy, what are you doing here? We got cast in the same pilot 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
And which is, in those days, that's crazy because they were doing a lot of pilots in those days. But so what are the odds? So we do the show. It was EP'd and written by these writers named David Crane and Marta Kaufman.
Yeah.
And so they did another pilot that year, too, for another network, NBC, called the Untitled Courtney Cox pilot. Reality Check doesn't get picked up for Fox.
Shit.
I become the youngest filmmaker at Sundance. Hillary wins 2 Academy Awards. David Crane and Marta Kaufman's NBC pilot gets a title. It's Friends.
Yeah.
And the rest is all history. That was my last foray as an actor in Hollywood.
That's fucking
But can you imagine that show gets picked up? It ruins all of our lives, possibly. Oh, yeah. Like David Crane and Marta Kaufman are show running 2 shows, and you never know how you can really moderate quality on that.
Or what happens if that does get picked up? It ruins your life.
I'd be a millionaire maybe, or a drug addict, or a meth head, or something.
Yeah, you would have never found solace in anything. But you might have fucked Hilary Swank, which would have been pretty cool. I would have definitely.
I feel like she was already with Rob Lowe's brother, Chad Lowe, at that point.
Was she?
Yeah, they were married very young. And then
speaking
divorced.
of drug addicts, he fell off the map, right?
Chad Lowe? He had
a bad cocaine problem.
Really? I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Dude, I would have loved to have Rob Lowe. As a kid, I remember thinking, I would love to look like Rob Lowe for one day and just slaughter pussy. Like,
I always paraphrase that Woody Allen line about Warren Beatty. I said, when I die, I want to come back as Leonardo DiCaprio's hands. Like, because what those hands have touched. And Woody Allen used to say that about Warren Beatty, like back in the 60s.
So
70s.
Funny. The first thing I thought was, you'll just be touching his dick a lot. Like, that's the first thing I thought. I want to come back.
Oh, Great Gatsby.
That's his mouth.
The Great Gatsby.
No. So you go from you seem to be very Florida centric.
We told this all out of order. It's like Pulp Fiction or something here, like Jackie Brown.
I'm trying to find some sort of closure. I'm really bad at podcasting. I'm the worst interviewer.
It's ADD podcast.
So you do Cocaine Cowboys.
Yeah.
By the way, I always wanted to tell you, we found a brick of weed in the ocean when we were
Square Grouper, baby.
Yeah, when we were in high school. Not we. I didn't find it. Someone else found it, but they were selling it, and it was called seaweed.
Seaweed.
And we were
Square Grouper. Yeah, it had a bunch of names. Yeah.
But everyone was like, "Can you taste the salt water?" And we were like, yeah, I totally can, but you couldn't.
Howard Schnellenberger, the coach from the U, who just retired from FAU, his son was a model back in those days. So Miami, just like you see it in Scarface, Ocean Drive was just a shithole of retirees. It was efficiencies. You could live there for $200 a week.
Yeah.
You could live in these rooms. And it was a lot of people on Social Security, on fixed incomes, a lot of Holocaust survivors, old Jews. And it looked just like it did in Scarface. And so Bruce Weber, the photographer, comes to town and goes, well, shit, this is beautiful. The guy's a photographer. It's all about it's what's in the frame and what's not in the frame.
Yeah.
And you keep the old people out, and you keep the beautiful Art Deco, and of course the sun and the sand and the trees. And he went on top of the Breakwater Hotel and shot what became the Calvin Klein Obsession campaign. Remember the black and white little kids half naked?
Yeah.
That was like scandalous. It was like this young naked kid. So one of those kids was Howard Schnellenberger's son, who was a model. So one morning they show up really early to a shoot behind the Fontainebleau Hotel. And if you've ever been behind the Fontainebleau, all those, like that stretch of beach there's a broad walk. There's like this raised wooden boardwalk thing. And they went out there one morning, like right at the break of dawn. The sun's coming up over the Atlantic. And what should wash ashore but a bale of marijuana? It's 40 pounds of pot, seaweed or square grouper, and they dragged it and kept it under the staircase of the broadwalk, and then took it home.
Really?
Yeah, it was like Howard Schellenberger's wife Beverly told me that. She's like, "Oh, I saw your documentary, Square Grouper: The Godfathers of Ganja." I was like, "Oh, really?" And she's like, "Yeah," and she goes, "We have a Square Grouper story in the family," and that was the.
It's so fascinating, but that was like a real thing. So wait, how do you begin researching for a project like that? Like, does someone come to you with the story and go?
You breathe deep in through your nose, out through your mouth.
Is that?
No, I'm just kidding. That's a funny thing about me is like my friends call me up for like I was notorious in high school. We'd be sitting around, people would be smoking weed. I'm in the high school in the mid '90s, so it's like, well, weed's the perennial, but then it was the cyclical trend of psychedelics came around again. Yeah. People were doing shrooms and acid, ecstasy. I guess kind of brought that on because ecstasy was the new drug at the time. Yeah. But then everybody was trying the '60s shit all over again. And cocaine had kind of fallen off in the '90s, and in high school nobody had money for cocaine anyway. But I was notorious, so we'd be sitting around and people would be smoking, and they would pass the joint over me because I didn't smoke. I didn't even start drinking until I was 21, much to my to the chagrin of my roommate at the University of Miami dorms. But he drank enough. Lee drank enough for us, for like both of us, our freshman year. And I have never done drugs. I've never even taken a hit off a joint. I drink. I'm making up for lost time when I started drinking at 21. But like, and my friends are calling me up like, "What the hell do you know about cocaine? Like, what are you doing all these drug movies for?" It's like, you've never done drugs before. And I'm like, well, it's I try to tell a good story. It really doesn't matter. But
it's a story that's indicative of South Florida.
And that was it. We grew up with it. That's really the answer to your question. Is like, I grew up sitting at the dinner table while mom's that awful feeling on a weeknight when mom's making dinner, the sun's going down, you're doing homework, you're like, shit, I'm now closer to school than I am away from, you're like, that horrible feeling like mom's steaming vegetables or making dinner or pasta, and like I'm just sitting there, the local news is on at 5 p.m. And these are the stories that we grew up with, like all that news footage you see in Cocaine Cowboys. That was our childhood. And then when we started to do the research for Cocaine Cowboys, and I'm watching all that news footage like together. And not just one night, or one day a week, and on and on and on. But like I'm watching it all together, and it's like, I called my mom up and I was like, "What the fuck were you thinking raising children in Miami in the 1980s?"
It's a very honest question. It's a very valid question. Like, Miami was scary.
It was scary. It really was. And the thing was, it started with the drug crime, but then crime just exploded everywhere. Like smash and grabs and carjacking. So it just became
German
like a criminal.
Tourists.
Oh, the German tourists in the 90s. That was it started with the suns. They would put the suns on street signs so that tourists would know what exits to get off of. If it didn't have a sun on it, like exit at your own peril.
Are you serious?
They started taking back in the day. You remember rental cars had the bumper stickers. They started taking bumper stickers off of the rental cars so that criminals would have a tougher time IDing tourists in rental cars. Now you just look at, if it's from Manatee County, we call them manatees. We usually know that they're tourists. But Miami was a legitimately well, you think about it, in the early 1980s, right when Time magazine did their Paradise Lost cover in 1981, our number one industry was real estate, $12 billion a year. Number two was tourism with $9 billion a year. Drugs was like a $12-13 billion a year business. And a lot of that drove the real estate market as well. So
it's, for those of you that don't know, and I don't know if this is as well known as me and you would know, but there was like, I want to say 2 cases of German tourists pulling off an exit and getting off on the wrong street, and them just pulling them out of their car and killing them.
At least 2, possibly even as many as 3 or 4. And it was just, when you were over in Germany, the word on the street was, boycott Miami. You don't go to Miami, you will be dead. And
Don't
that
go to
was
Miami.
Yeah, and that was, I mean, that inspired a lot of don't kill me, I'm a native, or I'm a local, like those types of snarky T-shirts or bumper stickers or things. I mean, it was just like a lot of political cartoons with just like German tourists being hunted like like deer. And it was really like that. I mean, and that's the thing about Scarface is that there's a common sense that Scarface is somehow over the top or exaggerated or hyperbolic. It's really
it's not.
It's not. Brian De Palma's famous for that like operatic style, that big sweeping epic stuff. But the truth of the matter is that almost everything. Oliver Stone, who wrote that screenplay, he came down to Miami, spent at least a year research. As Oliver Stone researches, he gets very.
I would have loved to have been on that art research and development team. I bet that was a fucking blast. It was holy shit.
Well, it reminds me of we have a studio down here, a recording studio called Criteria Studios, where for people who don't know, almost every major record that you can think of, like famous all-time record, we're in the Hard Rock, so it's appropriate, was recorded, mixed, mastered at least in part at Criteria.
Really?
Saturday Night Fever, Fleetwood Mac, Allman Brothers, CSN, the piano, the upright piano from the Layla solo is still there right now in North Miami as we speak. Yes. And so they would, and the artists loved it down here. Really, I think Clapton was the first guy who came down here. He was just out of rehab. He went and stayed at a house. What was it, 457 Ocean? Was that the name? Because he named the album after the house that he lived at in Golden Beach, with a picture of him. People's tourists still go there to take pictures because he's standing out front of the house in Golden Beach that he rented while he did this album.
Last place I would go after rehab.
They wrote Hotel California in Miami Beach, in a rented house in Miami Beach.
Really?
Oh yeah, in their bathrobes. They holed themselves up in their room and got sandwiches and coffee delivered to the door. Nobody saw them for 3 days. Campbell and Fry, and they all of a sudden came downstairs in their bathrobes, guitars, and legal pads saying, "We just wrote our best song ever," and performed it for the housekeeper and the two ladies who rented them the house right in Miami Beach. It's so they would everybody. Jimmy Buffett did Changes in Latitudes. He invented a brand of music at Criteria because he was in Nashville doing country. He's like, I want to do Southern rock. I want to do something a little different. So he like Caribbean rock. They invented that there with Margaritaville. And so they go there and they loved it because they were away from the watchful eye of the record labels. Yeah. So the record labels would just get bills sent to them. And they had a category for cocaine on the line item on the bill. It would be piano tuning. So that would be the cocaine bill. So they'd be getting calls at the studio from like executives, in New York and LA, at like record labels, going, "Hi, just inquiring about this bill. So there's an item here for piano tuning for $5,000, and there's only one ballad on the album. So we're trying to figure this out.
Incorporate some fucking piano in it, guys."
So apparently Stephen Stills had a bag of cocaine that he put on top of that Layla piano while he was playing, and the bag fell over. And it landed on the keys in a puff of smoke. So he gathered up as much as he could. But like for the next several months, the engineers would take straws and poke them through the keys on the piano and would just snort. And they got mostly dust, so they were all fucked up. But like they would be snorting cocaine from between the keys of the piano at Criteria Studio. And it's still there. The piano is still there to this day.
So I don't think you answered my question.
No, probably not.
How do you get the guys to tell you the story for Cocaine Cowboys?
Oh, you hadn't asked that question yet. But that's a good question. No, that's a good question. Well, just like Miami, it's the same thing with Square Grouper. It's like my favorite pastime of mine is Miami. Is like you go to just the diviest dive. I don't like the South Beach clubs. I go to the skeeziest dive bars that I can find. And you idle up to some crusty dude at the bar. You just grab the stool next to him and strike up a conversation, and invariably he will be some deposed third world leader or some drug smuggler,
really
or at least we'll have a story like that. Whether it's true or not, you buy him some shitty whiskey and you'll have the most interesting night of storytelling of your life there. And so that's kind of a cousin of mine was at the pool at his condo, the shared pool, and meets John Roberts. And that's the Italian guy in Cocaine Cowboys who, by the time before his 30th birthday, he had been a part of the biggest crime syndicates in the history of the world. The mafia, the Italian mob in New York, and then the Colombian cartel in Miami. So we were like we'd like to interview him. And then through him, we met Mickey Monday, who was the smuggler. And we started to get these archetypes. So here's the wholesaler. Here's a smuggler. Now we need a Colombian hitman.
Yeah.
And Jorge Rivi Ayala, was in a unique position where he had...
He's a guy in prison, right?
Yeah. And he had a deal where he could talk about all the murders he committed in Miami-Dade County, and avoid, and only got he got 3 life sentences instead of the death penalty.
Really?
And he couldn't talk about murders in other places because there's no statute of limitations, but he could tell us, and he has an impeccable memory. You might remember, like in the movie, he's like, he remembers sights, sounds, smells, what cars they drove, what caliber of weapon everybody used, who shot who first, in what order. It's really rather extraordinary. And he's such an unassuming character. He's such a laid-back guy that, and he whispers. I don't know if it's a force of habit he picked up in prison, but he whispers. And so when someone whispers, you have to lean in closer to them in order to hear them. Yeah. And so I would realize I'm like centimeters away from this man who is a murderer of women and children.
Good God.
Yeah, but here's the thing. He saw himself as a mercenary. He was a gun for hire. He said, and I was only going after people that if I didn't kill them first, they were going to kill me or my boss who was paying me to protect her.
Yeah.
The godmother, La Medina, Griselda Blanco. And so he saw himself. He wasn't a bloodthirsty murderer who got off on killing people. He was a soldier, just like, in fact, when he came to America when he was 11 years old, he came to his dad was living in Chicago working for General Motors, and he came through customs in MIA. That's how he first entered America, and then went to O'Hare in Chicago. And he comes into America, and the customs guys, little Jorge, stamping his passport and says, little George, what do you want to do here in America? He goes, I want to kill people. And the guy laughs. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, I want to go to Vietnam for America and kill people for America. Protect America.
Holy
and they
shit.
laughed and tussled his hair and stamped his passport and sent George on his way to kill people. And he was 11 in those days. Yeah. And of course, he went to Chicago. And then by the time he came to Miami, he was a gun for hire. He was an assassin for the Medellin cartel.
Did you get scared at any point in telling that story that...
Honestly, you'll understand this having spent so many years in a college town. I was more scared in Gainesville, I think, than I ever was in prison, to tell you the truth.
Were there kids that were out to, like, when you were doing that documentary about the frat boys?
There were people that weren't happy that we were doing it. I'll put it to you that way. There weren't what I would describe as overt threats. There were certainly subtle threats, covert threats, hints of threats. But really, and I think maybe Rivi is so easygoing, like he's just so relaxed that and that's kind of, I remember reading a review once for Cocaine Cowboys, and someone said that, this proves my theory that every depiction of a movie assassin that we've ever seen has been wrong. Because here's this guy who throws that all on its head, and that's what's so interesting about him. He's just sort of a normal guy, but he is this murderer. And I'll never forget. So that movie, our first movie, Raw Deal: A Question of Consent, it got locked up in some litigation with a company called Artisan that eventually got bought out by Lionsgate. So we kind of got caught up in this whole mess of the sale, and they didn't want to release our movie, and they had picked it up it was on the front page of the New York Post that they'd picked it up out of Sundance. We couldn't get the movie. They wouldn't pay us for it. They wouldn't release it, and they wouldn't let us go out and resell it or release it.
Really?
It was just a classic sort of first-time indie filmmaker clusterfuck, just like one of those debacles you hear about, young filmmakers getting screwed. That was us, and so we went out. We couldn't get any industry financing for Cocaine Cowboys either. That's like a whole. Nobody got it. Nobody understood it.
Really?
Yeah, it was just a total mess. But while we're working on Cocaine Cowboys, we're embroiled in this litigation on Raw Deal: Question of Consent. So I never forget Alfred, my producing partner. We were in the prison. We were setting up the cameras, and they'd bring him into the room in this mess hall that we would film in, and Alfred, I guess, appeared sort of distracted or distraught, and Rivi said to him, Yo, Alfred, always whispering, Alfred, what's the matter? You okay? Everything okay? You could sense something was wrong. Everything okay? And this guy, he was one of the few people in his crew that spoke English. So he'd read the Miami Herald every day. He was very well informed and kind of integrated into American culture, which is part of what made him so good at what he did. That and the fact that he whispered, which meant people had to get close to him, which is a lot easier to kill you with a Mac 11, which is very difficult to aim a Mac 11. So you have to be really close. You pull the trigger on Mac 11, and 40 rounds later, in 2 seconds, you're over. Yeah. But Rivi said, Alfred, are you okay? What's wrong? And Alfred said, he's like, in this lawsuit with the distributor. They won't pay us for this movie, and I'm just kind of distracted, dealing with all this nonsense. And Ravi goes, "Somebody owe you money?" And Alfred's like, "Well, kind of. We just want the movie." It's like, no. You just call this guy. Let me give you a number to call. You call this guy. He'll get you your money. And Alfred's like, "Thanks, Rivi. Thank you, Rivi. But no thanks. We'll go the. That's the thing about cocaine, though, is that with pot, it wasn't that expensive. Cocaine, it was in the late 70s, early 80s on a dirt strip, landing strip in Colombia. You could get $3 to $5 grand for a kilo. This is what they were. When you got to America in those days, it was $50,000. So the risk and the reward was in the transport, was in the smuggling. So that's when the Colombians were like, "What the hell are we selling it for $5 grand when we could get 50 for right? We'll pay some schmuck $3 grand a kilo to transport it for us and give it back to us, like from Apple's factory to the Apple store. We'll just start setting up our own wholesale operations around the country." And it's really an ingenious kind of business. It's like a CNBC story, which is why I think they show the documentary on CNBC now, because it's such an incredible business success story. And to boot, they were marketing a product that was illegal and still made it a multi-billion-dollar business. But these guys, they just I don't even remember where I was honestly going with this story. I just started.
I don't know either. I could listen to you talk forever. You really do. You really do own the title, raconteur. How do you say it?
Raconteur. You are a raconteur.
I guess.
That's a great. That's why I love you and Joe. And Coco, because and by the way, I love Gilbert. I love to watch, a fucking assassin just go up there, line him up and just knock him down. I'm a kind of an old school guy, so I like that style. But to watch you guys go up and work the way that you do and tell stories and not just set up punchlines, but to watch you guys work is it's a privilege because it's work. You go up there and you tell stories, and they're hilarious stories, but it's not just what your sort of stereotypical perception of stand-up comedy is.
It's interesting, thank you. But it's so funny. But we just did a documentary about me that is yet to come out. That it's been a little bit of a headache for the filmmakers and for myself, trying to get people to look at it, trying to get a place for it to land, and then we were like, just fuck it, we're just gonna put it out and on the internet, or I forget what we're doing right now.
Louis C.K. model. He was pretty revolutionary.
It's really hard to make your money back that way.
Almost impossible.
Yeah, but we don't have any money. We have money in it. It's cost more money than we expected it to cost.
Always does.
What is this? Oh, it's for ice. I was like,
it's half a straw.
But we're just going to release it at film festivals, and then all the people that paid for it on Kickstarter, give them their copy, and then it's like there's a timeline, I guess.
Netflix.
Yeah, well,
you got a good licensing fee from Netflix.
Yeah, but I should probably have the guys talk to you. You've done this before, but it's the process of making a documentary. You think it's going to be easy? It's a fucking nightmare. It is not. You think it's just it's like doing a podcast. It's like you think it's going to be a lot easier. Like, I've tried 1,000,000 times to do the Bill Burr model where you just speak into the mic. I sound like a fucking lunatic. Inevitably, I turn onto some subject that is not fair, and it's one-sided, and it's me. I'm like a fucking moron. So I go back and I watch all your docs, and I'm like, damn it. You really do a great job. Tell me what's in the books for you for 2014, 15.
So, first things first, the U Part 2, which I'm guessing is not going to be called the U2, because I'm sure Bono and the Edge would have a problem with that. God. So, and I realized we had ESPN. Title is a bit above my pay grade. Yeah. What does Alfred say? Alfred says he's like a relationship with Hollywood. I think it was Hemingway who said you go to the Nevada-California border. You throw your script over, they throw a satchel of money over, and you go your separate ways, kind of a thing. So we've done that for a while too, where we've had licensed people have licensed the dramatic adaptation rights to our docs. Alfred just says he says he wants to be like the John Grisham or Stephen King of documentaries where all of our movies at least get optioned, for some kind of dramatic treatment. And we've gone along for the ride for a while, but now we're getting more creatively involved. I think we're gonna adapt Cocaine Cowboys ourselves dramatically.
Oh, that would be fucking awesome.
Yeah, which I think is just we've been in the back seat going along with the big
James
boys
Franco.
for a while, so.
I want to see James Franco as one of those Ocala rednecks. Oh.
He kind of already did that in Spring Breakers, but
did he?
Well, that was St. Petersburg.
Yeah.
He was a St. Petersburg, white dude who thought he was black, basically.
Riffraff.
Yeah, he was. That's right. Yeah. So that was he ripped off his shtick. Yeah, but he was pretty. I thought he was pretty brilliant in that.
I didn't see it.
Spring Breakers, I got to tell you, is probably of the last 10 years one of my favorite Florida movies.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like it just reeks Florida to me.
Shit,
you got to check it. It's and a lot of people hate it. It's like because it's very kind of stream of consciousness. But I think of all these movies that try to like say, oh, it captures this generation, this like social media EDM who gives a shit generation. I think this movie really accomplishes that. I think Harmony Korine did like a tremendous job with it. I don't want to talk it up too much because you'll be pleasantly surprised with low expectations.
Harmony Korine did by the way, my favorite pitch that I've ever heard. He did a documentary about getting beaten up. Did you ever hear about this?
No.
I don't know. Like he wrote a book when I was at Barnes and Noble, and he did a signing, and I hung around him. I like kind of just listened, and I don't know if he told it then or if he told it in an article, but he did a documentary about violence and trying to find the comedy, just like Fatty Arbuckle, in violence. So he was trying to make a straight-up comedy movie about getting beaten up. So he'd go and he'd bait bouncers, and he would get in fights. And
film it.
It would all be filmed. And so it was him, like, just going up and, like, slapping the guy.
I don't know if you noticed, you mentioned Fatty Arbuckle. My eyes immediately went to the glass Heineken bottle over there. That's too soon?
No.
Nobody knows what we're talking about, by the way.
I bought the book I Fatty by Terry Stahl.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I haven't read it.
Me either, but I bought it. So
that counts. As long as it's on my Kindle.
Buy my fucking book, everybody. So go to BertCom and buy my book, Life of the Party.
And Bert doesn't care if you read it. Just buy it.
Shitting it for all I care. And he was saying, and someone was saying, and I can't remember. Like I said, my memory is a little sketchy about this, but I remember the fact was someone was like, "Oh my god!" So he'd go up to a bouncer and like slap him and be like, "Hey boys, how you guys doing tonight?" And then they'd beat the shit out of him, and he'd try to make it comical. And someone said, "So how is that going?" And he said, "Well, I highly underestimated how long a fight lasts when one of the participants can't fight." And he's like, they're really quick, and so I have about 8 minutes of footage, and I've been beat up like 10 times. And he's like, and they snapped his fucking leg. Like, they put him in the hospital. Like, he got beat the fuck up. Like, if you slap a bouncer in New York, I think it was, I want to say, and by the way, I don't know where I'm getting any of this information other than the fact that I have it, so it must have been given to me somehow.
But what is going on in the mind of this man that he would do this repeatedly is the other thing. Like, once you've done it once, twice, 3 times.
He was trying to do a documentary about getting beaten up. And I want to say this is before Jackass. So now you look at it and you go, he was on the right. In the right, he was in the pocket.
Ahead of his time, this guy.
He was ahead of his time, but yeah, I've been a big fan.
So he's at Scores. Did something happen specifically at Scores?
The bouncer put his leg on the curb and snapped his shin. I by the way, don't know where I'm getting this information, but other than the fact that I have it and I couldn't have dreamt it. So,
and I've just been watching that Willis McGahee. Yeah, and you remember Willis's injury? That was like one of the worst injuries ever. End of the 2002 season was 2003. That Fiesta Bowl, I think, is what it was.
Motherfucker.
That Ohio State game where they got robbed. Robbed at the end.
So what is on the plan?
Okay, well, first and foremost, it's the U sequel, which is really like I said, the same arc as the first movie. Is kind of the rise and fall leading up to that 2001 and arguably 2002 national championship, depending, because at least for 5 or 6 or 7 seconds they were in the national championships that year before Ohio State. And Terry Porter, that late flag, took it away. So that's first. We're also we're working on 2 other Cocaine Cowboys documentaries. So it's just kind of we're not putting numbers anymore. We just released Cocaine Cowboys Reloaded, which is on Netflix streaming, which is a wholesale re-edit of the first movie from scratch. Because when we were first making the movie, we had so much footage,
I bet.
and so much of it was good. And we wound up cutting shit out that was arguably just as good, if not better, than what made the final cut. That's usually you edit. I'm putting the best shit in. But you also have to tell a story, that has an arc, that has a beginning, middle, and end. So, we had to make some really hard decisions strictly for time. Not quality, just for time. So this enabled us to say, fuck it, let's not worry about running time. We completely re-edited the movie. And it's a wild experiment. But if you like the first one, because I know people who've seen the first one 30, 40, 50.
I've seen it a few times.
Yeah.
I bought it in hotels a few times.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah,
God
of course.
Bless your heart. Spectrovision?
I love it. I love the movie because I feel like I don't know. I don't know. I like all your stuff because I feel like I grew up with it. So I feel like it's almost like a little bit of a blanket. I watch it and I go, oh, yeah, I remember that. I know when he talks about digging a hole in his backyard to bury money or whatever, I'm like, I know what his backyard, I know that grass. I know that it's not sod. I know what that looks like. So I really get it. Well,
they're all stories from our childhood so far. They really are. Tanning of America is the entire pop. When I was thinking about Tanning of America, I was like, well, shit, I grew up this white middle-class kid in North Miami Beach. But my Johnny Carson was Arsenio. My Saturday Night Live was in living color.
Yeah.
I grew up listening to Run DMC, and then when Do the Right Thing came out, I was listening to Public Enemy because I was a film buff. So that dictated my.
When I can tell you, I remember 2 Live Crew driving down to school. I was probably I want to say a sophomore or a junior, but I know the street I was driving down listening to.
Which sophomore or junior year was that for you?
That's high school.
Oh,
so,
right.
Yeah. Just one. And that by the time I got to college, it was all about Outkast. I was fucking obsessed with Outkast and Swab House, and my buddy Miles is my all our Miles Mosley. This is a interesting story. Miles Mosley is one of my best friends. I say that weirdly because I don't talk to him a lot. I'm having an issue with how I handle friends because I don't really talk to anybody anymore. I feel like I don't talk to anybody. I sit in a hotel room. My phone has 20 messages, and I don't respond to anyone.
I know. I was trying to find you today.
Oh,
I was alligator wrestling just to kill time.
Nightmare. I'm a nightmare.
I did. I went with the witch doctor, and we blessed the Anna Nicole Smith suite and everything. They have to do that twice a week.
Oh, yeah.
They get rid of the demons out of
6
there.
6 o'clock? Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, you had to work, dude. For real.
I know. It's just a matter of time to start drinking.
Is there an early show?
Yeah, 2 shows.
Oh.
Fuck, I think 8 and... Please tell me it's not at 7.
No, they can't be. Not on what is it, Friday night?
Yeah, it's got to be 8.
Although who the hell knows?
It's got to be 8 and 10.
I don't know. You never know. You never know with the Indians. It's tough because they say the house always wins in a casino.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Indian casinos, it's they're the one casinos where the house never wins because no matter how much money you lose here, we still raped their women and stole their country.
Yeah.
So the least you could do is drop some change at the one-armed bandit. Call it reparations. Whatever you want.
I got in so much trouble my first time here. I'm not sharing that story.
My God, really? You're gonna tease that? Have a drink, dude.
Fuck it. There was a group of black chicks on the side that I was having a lot of fun with, and then a group of Puerto Rican chicks on the other side of the stage. I was fucking around with both of them, and I was having a blast. And I said, let me buy you ladies a shot. And we were having so much fun, I can't even tell you. And that's what I love about this club is that I really feel like you get that opportunity. And so I buy them shots, and then some girl in the back goes, "What about me?" And I go, "What about you?" She goes, "How come you don't buy me a shot?" She's hammered. And I go, "Okay." She goes, "Just black and Puerto Rican girls. That's it. That's all you buy." I go, "What are you?" She goes, "I'm a Seminole Indian. Buy me a shot." And I said, "All right, someone get her a tuberculosis shot." And the fucking place loses it. Okay? And I forget that I'm in a fucking Seminole casino.
It's scalped, dude.
And she gets mad and starts booing me.
Oh.
And then the black chick goes, "Kick her out." Oh. And I go, I can't kick her out.
It's like she owns this whole everything.
She's like someone and the Puerto Rican chick on the other side. It's like, "Kick her out." And I go, "Have you ladies not read your history book? Just go take her seat."
Oh!
And the fucking place goes nuts again. And by the way, I feel bad because I don't even take those chances anymore. But this is like way before Travel Channel, way before any of that, and then I get done and she's waiting for me, and she wasn't as mad. She was actually okay, but like she was with a group of Native Americans that were all Seminoles, and Seminoles get paid like $125,000 a year. If you're full Seminole, you get paid $125,000.
Your casino money. Yeah, you get your casino money. Yeah.
And so they were
God bless them.
They were rich. They were all rich as fuck.
There's a reason why they're unconquered.
Yeah.
The Seminoles.
I wanted to say I went to Florida State. Like we're, didn't fucking
go Redskins.
Didn't go.
No.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
It's over. I don't know. They're gonna. I don't know what the hell they're gonna do. I mean, they're gonna have to change. I think they're gonna have to change the name. I think they're gonna have to do it.
I tweeted something trying to make a light of it. But I wasn't meaning it the way I tweeted it. That's why Twitter's so fucking dangerous.
Yeah.
I tweeted, change it to the Rednecks, and I'll buy that jersey. Like it would be funny because you're not going to offend rednecks.
That was the end of your career with Affleck.
And they fucking what had happened was no one that is liberal, which is where you get fired, is when you piss off the liberal side.
Actually, yeah.
No one that's liberal
politically correct people.
That.
Yeah,
right. But what happened was it was the people that are in support of them not changing the name at all, and misconstrued the joke and thought that I was saying that I think that the people that like Redskins are ignorant and call them and so they got upset, and I was like, no, I was just trying to make a stupid fucking joke.
They know you're a comic, right? Like I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. There's somewhere like just the death of irony. R.I.P. bro. Like in this country, especially on Twitter, it's like you can't take anything that anybody says in 140 characters or less that fucking seriously. Like I write tweets all the time and then don't post them.
Oh, I have
some of my funniest
I have a bunch
shit
listed right now
in your drafts folder. Oh, by the way, how scary is this? Is the post all button in the bottom corner of the drafts folder? Who the fuck would need that ever?
That's like the share button on YouPorn.
Yeah, who needs?
I don't want to share this on Facebook.
Yeah,
tell everyone I'm jerking off.
You want to post all of your drafts in one fell swoop? Like, who would need that? Like, Twitter needs to just, for all the drunk tweeters out there, needs to get rid of that function. Yes, that's fine. But not just post all of your drafts. Could you imagine? That would be just. By the way, I would just put my phone in the toilet and hang myself. That would just be the end of life.
I'm gonna go through and delete mine right now.
Do it. Delete all. Don't post all.
I have ones. Oh, my phone's almost dead.
Plug it in, dude. You're in your hotel room. Plug it in.
I'm a fucking such a.
But I post. So this is what I wrote. I write it on my Twitter, and I'll like ask my buddy. Like we're sitting there in the editing room. I'll post it, and I'll like kind of turn my laptop around. And I'll like point to it, and he'll read it, and he'll just shake his head like, "No, don't do." It's funny, but don't do it. Like
I fought with a tweet the other day because I couldn't get it down to
and
140.
The tweet won.
And it was the joke was we went swimming out on my wife's lake in Alabama, and we went swimming pretty far out, and I didn't wear a life preserver, and I got scared because I was like, "Motherfucker, I'm getting tired." Like, and then I was like, "I'm not as good a swimmer as I thought." So the joke was. Swimming's a lot like sex. Or no, sex is a lot like swimming. You think you're good at it and competent because you were good when you were young, and then one day you try it and you get way in over your head. You realize, I might die today. But I couldn't get it down to the fucking 140, and I was so fucking pissed.
That joke's a bit more of a journey. Yeah, you can't
it's a
really
little bit
do
of a
it.
journey.
Yeah, but
yeah.
But here's the thing. Like, I could give a shit about soccer or football or whatever the hell. I'm sorry. Soccer, or as they call it, football, or as I call it, screensaver. Yeah. So like, this is not a sport. I'm sorry. I know it's the most popular sport in the world, but it's not a sport. I'm sorry. It's cardio with a ball. I mean, that's it. It's like they're like these athletes are in such amazing shape. I'm like, yeah, they run around not scoring for 2 hours. Like you'd be in the best shape of your life too.
Yeah, they
running
really
around
are.
Running around in Haiti for 2 hours. Okay, I get it. But so
no one's got plantar fasciitis in soccer. That's all that fucking. I can't watch soccer because I think, what, aren't your feet killing you?
They hurt me when I watch soccer. I was all that running around without scoring. It's exhausting. It really is. But I do a couple like one that I had every once in a while I had to tweet just so they know I don't give a shit. I tweeted about soccer I tweet about soccer twice a week during the World Cup because nothing says I don't give a shit than just tweeting about soccer twice a week.
Yeah,
because everybody else is like every tweet is about World Cup. So I'm like, I tweet what I tweet. It's like dangerous World Cup drinking game. Every time someone tweets about Colombia but spells it Colombia with a U, do a shot of aguardiente. Like that was but like it's lame. Like that's the other day during the Brazil Germany game. Yeah. So I write this tweet and I was like, whatever happens, the favelas will get Brazil World Cup champion T-shirts. Okay, and like that's like the Haiti joke, you know, like so like that was okay. But then I wrote the second one because they were down a touchdown. By the way, they were down an entire touchdown, but in soccer it was like 7-0. And I tweet, Oscar Schindler couldn't even save these people from the Germans.
Oh, okay.
And so I turned it around and showed my buddy Dave, and he chuckled and then shook his head a solemn no. So I deleted and I tweet, well, one thing's for sure, LeBron's not going to Brazil. That got like 8,000 retweets. But it was so late. But I felt late. I felt dirty doing it. Like I combined LeBron and World Cup in one tweet. That was such.
I cannot hear the word Schindler's List without sharing my favorite joke, and I can't remember whose joke it is. Although I know I follow him on Twitter, and I know we've talked, and he's just a British comic. And I've always been like, if you ever come to America, please do my podcast. My favorite Schindler's List joke is, and I'm going to do it with your accent, but God, I wish I remembered your fucking name. Everyone's going to tweet me the guy's name, and I'll retweet it. I saw Schindler's List the other night. I walked in late. What did the Jews do to Hitler? Hey, really? I walked in late. What did the Jews do to Hitler? I mean, he was mad. I love that joke. I made me laugh. There's another one, and I want to say this one's Ed Burns.
Why have you collected
joke.
Schindler's List jokes? Why is this like a fetish of yours?
No, that's my. It's British jokes. British joke writers are really. British comics are
They're
really
brilliant
funny.
and brutal. They're brutal. I wish we could get away with what British comics get away with.
Oh no, it's a very different medium. I love. Look, I'm telling you the good ones. There's a lot of really bad ones. There's
a lot of bad Schindler's List jokes.
There's a lot of I'm sure there is. But
you mean British comics?
British comics.
Right.
Yeah. Then one of my other favorite British jokes is I want to say Ed Burns had this joke, and it's I'm not going to do his accent because it's Irish, but he's like, I was watching Back to the Future the other day. Don't you think at some point George McFly would look at his wife and go, "Are you sure you didn't fuck that Calvin Klein kid? Because our kid looks just like him."
Now I want to try to do that in the Irish lilt. That I was,
Are you sure?
George McFly.
Oh, hello. I don't bad at accents.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
All right, we should wrap this up. I have to go fucking eat a sandwich. I'm still hungover from this morning doing Paul and Young Ron. I drank way too much.
You did Paul and Young Ron this morning?
Yeah, it was a nightmare. I rolled in and I was very hungover from last night because we didn't get some. It was a fucking long story. Everything's a fucking long story these days. You know what isn't a long story? Hey, Bert, take a week off from drinking. That's happening next week. I go home and I'm on the wagon the second I get back to L.A. and I'm not drinking for like 2 weeks.
Do you count down the days, or are you cool? Are you thrilled about that?
I'm thrilled about it because what happens here is it's like you go into a show and it's really hard not to drink because everyone's sending shots to the stage, and so then you have a couple shots, and then after you have a couple shots, you have a couple more, and then you end up in your fucking hotel room with all these open beer cans with fucking Fultron and my host.
And dude, there's not even two of the same beer.
It's the mini bar.
It's the
mini bar. We emptied out the mini bar last night.
Oh man.
So and then we're trying to do a podcast, but we're just. I mean, it turns into a fucking nightmare. And so then I get up early for press, and all I'm thinking about is a roast beef sandwich. So. Let's wrap it up. We'll go.
Speaking of Anna Nicole Smith.
Yeah, is that what she died?
I don't know. No, that was.
Where can everyone can find everything at CocaineCowboys.com?
.com. Yes, sir.
Cocaine. COCAINE. IAN. I'm dyslexic. We found out.
Yes. You know what the average FSU student gets on their SATs?
No.
Drool.
I'm trying to think of a joke about Miami.
How do you get the FSU graduate off your front porch? Pay him for the pizza.
Oh shit! Give me more.
An FSU quarterback, wide receiver, and running back are in a car. Who's driving?
Oh, wait, say it again.
FSU quarterback, wide receiver, and running back are in a car. Who's driving?
The cop. What do you? I'm trying now. By the way, now I'm going to truly tasteless joke books and incorporating Miami football player.
That's all I'm doing, really. I'm doing Gators jokes. How many FSU freshmen does it take to screw in a light bulb? No, that's a sophomore class at FSU.
I appreciate you doing this, Billy. Thank you very much.
Anytime. Thank you.
I love you.
This episode was brought to you by The Machine.